Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you all for being here today, and especially everybody who will tune in and watch this as time goes by on YouTube. And Linda, thank you especially for really creating this venue, which is so supportive of astrologers and students and anyone interested in astrology. So bless you and thank you. It's an amazing thing you've created here. So we don't have to look at the sky to know the intensity of what's happening in our lives. So what we have to do is turn on the news or go into Google News or something and we can see it. But I'm going to come at it from the astrological perspective today and unpack it so we can kind of get a handle on what it is that's happening down here on the ground. As above, so below, as below, so above. It definitely works in two directions. So today we're going to look at the transits for September for the lunar cycle for September, which begins tomorrow with the new moon and will run through September 17th, which will be the last day of the lunar cycle with the next new moon occurring on September the 18th. And stay here for the conclusion because I will have horoscopes for each sign at the end of this transit report. Hello, Gershon. Thank you for being here. So I have these, I call these planetary moments. What I'm going to run through here for part of this is to understand some of the dates and the events that are important for this upcoming lunar month. And obviously we start with the new moon and the full moon. The new moon will be at 26 degrees of Leo on August 18th. That's tomorrow. Depending on where you are on the planet will determine what time it actually occurs, but it will occur everywhere on the 18th of August. The Sabian symbol for the new moon is the luminance of dawn in the eastern sky. And I have these two Sabians here. We'll see the Sabian for the full moon, talk about that in a minute. The two of them speak about illumination. And I think it's encouraging and important to just reference this because in spite of some of the difficult, critical, challenging transits that we're gonna review today, we are going through a period of illumination, a period of luminescence. This is an initiation. This is a time where we are breaking through some barriers, but the barriers are quite thick, to say the least. And so it's going to take us some time to drill through them, if you would. I kind of remember something that someone who's much more illuminated than I said that, we're kind of all like in a prison, and we have this little metal spoon, and we're scraping at the wall, digging our way out of the prison that we're in. And what's unknown to us is how far we are from actually seeing daylight. We could be this far, or we could be this far, but we just have to keep digging our way out, and that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're going through. So the new moon is in Leo, in the later degrees of Leo at 26 degrees, 27 degrees is the Sabian symbol, and the full moon will be in Pisces on September 2nd. At 10 degrees of Pisces, and men traveling a narrow path seeking illumination. And we'll see the charts for both of these lunations in a couple of minutes. The other significant planetary movements for this month are these ingresses and stations of Pallas, Mars, and Jupiter. Pallas Athena, asteroid, second of the asteroids discovered back a century ago, will station direct at 12 degrees of Capricorn. Mars will station retrograde, and this is really the biggie that we're going to be dealing with this month. Will station retrograde, going to appear to be moving backwards in the sky at 28 degrees of Aries on September 9th. And then Jupiter, which has been retrograde for a number of weeks, will station direct at 17 degrees of Capricorn, 24 minutes on September 12th. So we're still going to have a tremendous proportion of planets in a retrograde motion, even though Jupiter is going to, and Pallas will be reversing direction. Mars is going to slow down, and he's practically standing still at the moment and will appear to move backwards in the sky. So these are the ingresses. The sun will enter Virgo, the sign of Virgo, on August 22nd. Mercury will enter the sign of Libra on September 5th. Venus will also enter Leo on, did I say Leo? Libra. Venus will enter Leo on September the 6th, and Hygeia will ingress Leo on September 12th. And if you're not familiar with all these signs or planets, that's okay. We're going to talk about this as this unfolds. This is just kind of an outline that I'm following in terms of trying to lay out some of this information chronologically and in some ordered fashion so that we can easily digest it. So this is the chart for the new moon. And here in Santa Fe, it occurs at 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. If you know your time zone, you can add or subtract to know what time it will be where you are living. What's really significant about this chart is that there's a Grand Cross, and I spent a considerable amount of time talking about the Grand Cross in the August transits last month, and this persists. And actually, it's deepening and intensifying as we move through August and through into September. And the planets that are in play are up at the top. We have Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and Pallas Athena, all holding this what I call the MC angle, this cardinal point. This is a cardinal cross because each of these angles of this square is in a cardinal sign: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. The Aries arm is Mars and Eris, and it's quite a potent combination. I posted a short piece today about Mars conjoining Eris. I think that the most significant thing that we can say about this that happened recently is anybody saw the reports of the fire tornado that broke out in California. I mean, that is a perfect example of a Mars Aries event, where the firestorm was so intense that it generally actually created its own whirlwind, its own tornadic column above it, and it was quite intense. It's a force of nature, and it's quite rare. And but under a Mars Eris conjunction in Aries, anything like this can happen. This combination, in combination with the Capricorn stellium, which is the signature of 2020, the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunctions is what is marking 2020. It's actually the Eris square to those planets that has intensified everything that is happening on the planet. Saturn and Pluto come together approximately every 30 years. Saturn and Jupiter every 20 years. Jupiter and Pluto every 10 to 15 years. So they're relatively short cycles, and they happen quite frequently. Why is it that this time the intensity of these particular conjunctions is so intense? And it's because of the square to Eris, planet of discord and chaos. She's credited with having started the Trojan War. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it because there's a lot of information on my website, the number 4 evolutionaryastrology.com, about this. But the mythology, from my perspective, is not about that Eris started a war. Eris, in actuality, ended the Greek classical age. At the end of the Trojan War, all of the heroes of Greek classical age were in the underworld. Odysseus visits them in the Odyssey. And just as remarkably, Aeneas, who was a royal cousin of Priam, he was a Trojan, was forced to leave Troy, and he sailed to Italy, and he was responsible for founding the Roman Empire. So not only did the Trojan War end the Greek culture, but it was the beginning. It was the incipient moment of the Roman Empire. This is the type of time space that we are passing through. The third angle here down at the bottom is this asteroid Hygeia. And Hygeia comes from the Latin word for, is the root word for hygiene. She was the daughter of Asclepius, who was the Greek god of medicine. And she is all about preventive medicine. And we'll come back to this. She clearly correlates to COVID-19, to the pandemics, and all of our responses to it. And the fourth angle of this square is Juno. Juno was the embattled wife of Zeus. He had it off with any nymph or goddess that he spotted and lusted for. Through it all, she stuck by him. They had battles which rocked Mount Olympus, but she remained committed to that relationship. And so a lot of what she is about is that commitment. And so the fourth angle here is what we are committed to and what we are in a relationship with. And, again, that's going to express as a very wide spectrum of human experience. Embedded into this grand cross is a grand square, is a grand trine. And the grand trines have a very facilitating reputation. All trines are facilitating, and everybody's happy to have a grand trine in their chart. Everybody's freaked out when they find out that they have a grand cross. It doesn't necessarily work that way. The thing about a grand cross is that it is a cardinal cross especially, is that it's very generative. It makes things happen. It is the succession from coming up from a cadent or a fixed or a succeeding house. And now we're dealing with a cardinal energy, which is full of initiation, full of needing to get something going, get it started. Saturn and Mars are very, very initiatory. And it's the reason that Saturn and Capricorn are associated with economic success and people who have great careers, because they know how to, they're self-starters. And, we all know about Mars. Mars is going to get going. The sign that it's in is going to determine the direction it goes, but it's going somewhere. It's not going to sit still. So this has tremendous potential in the cross itself for change and to initiate changes and to expose what needs to be changed. And these are the healing crises that we are all passing through right now. The Grand Cross, the Grand Trine is a fire and is a fire trine. And we're talking about Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries again. And again, this is very self-actualizing. These are the archetypes through which self-development, personal development occurs. So what we're seeing is this encouraging, facilitating configuration embedded in this Grand Cross that is compelling us to grow. We're growing proactively, or we're growing, reactively, but either way, we're going there. We're not going to be able to just sit back and watch this on TV. This is a total participatory event, whether we want to participate in it or not. The cross and the trine share a common point, a common angle, and it's Eris and Mars. And you heard what I had to say about both of them. So it's a very, very, this is the fulcrum, if you would. This is the pivot point on which this entire thing is turning. Eris, just to digress on Eris just a bit, Eris is responsible for Samuel Hahnemann to have realized homeopathy. Eris shows up in the charts of people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and people who were able to overcome consensus reality and realize some paradigm whose time had come, and it came through them. So to some degree, we're seeing this, but the realization, especially in our times with the misogyny and the xenophobia and the racism and the hatred and all of the issues that have permeated our culture for thousands of years are all being exposed, all being outed, and it's Eris that's doing that. Eris is a bitter pill to swallow, but she accomplishes resolving something that had no other way to be resolved. So this cardinal cross is active to the end of September. It doesn't mean that the effects of it will be over. The effects of this cross certainly are going to carry out through the rest of this decade. We're setting down tracks that we will be walking through and retracing for quite some time to come. As I said, they're initiatory, they're generative, they make stuff happen. You don't sit still when there's a cardinal grand cross. Pretty much covered a lot of these points. The intention here is to find a balance point between these oppositions, because a grand cross is composed of two oppositions, or two planets or groups of planets in this case, that are 180 degrees opposed to each other and squaring, making 90-degree angles to another opposition that's also two opposing factors. And each of those points are all in a crisis 90-degree mode to each other. So it's quite intense. It's just packed with all kinds of energy that just needs to find an outlet. And the intention here in any opposition, the classic opposition is the full moon that we're going to talk about in a minute or two, that happens every month. That is the template for the 180-degree opposition, when the moon reaches its greatest point of illumination from the sun. And it's all about finding the balance point. The classic opposition archetype is Aries and Libra is about balance. So it's about finding the balance between these oppositions, and these are elemental crises, because each one of these arms is a different element. Okay, we've got air, earth, fire, and water. Okay, going around the chart. So if we look at it, water dissolves everything that it encounters. A torrent of water literally can carve a huge, canyon, or an arroyo over time, even very quickly. And just a dripping faucet, dripping onto something will also, try and dissolve whatever it's dripping on. So it dissolves the solidity of Earth. Earth is very fixed. It's hard. It's solid. It's stable. Water dissolves that stability, dissolves that hardness, dissolves that fixed inability to change. But together, here in New Mexico, they create adobe. They create structure. The earth and water create building materials. When you put the two elements together, they are an important combination. And fire and air are the same thing. And this is exactly what I just talked about with the fire tornado. Fire actually requires air in order to create a flame. If you have ever tried to start a fire in your fireplace, or on your barbecue, it's the air that allows the wood or the charcoal to burn. It's not the fire cannot burn without air. And when air and fire combine, it creates wind. It actually creates our climate, creates what we call our weather. So these are not, even though they are dissimilar, they are dependent upon each other in order to accomplish what it is that the principles and the archetypes that they represent. Excuse me. So archetypically, what we're looking at here are power issues when we look at this Capricorn stellium. And clearly we have seen, power issues being displayed, politically and economically. All of these planets are suppression and repression and control, sitting here at the top of the chart. The Mars and Eris angle is anger and resentment, and it's the intensity of life in all areas, flares and persists. It is spirit itself. Fire is associated with spirit, and it is an unstoppable force. It's going to consume or embody, whatever it encounters. And the pandemic is exacerbated. These health issues are on the table with Hygeia. Things are not going to ease up anytime soon. I'd like to say that, next week the pandemic's going to be over, or they'll have some remedy for it, or everybody's just going to miraculously heal and have immunity. But it's not shaping up that way. The kids are going back to school. I'm concerned that we're really facing, from this chart tells me that we're facing another wave. We're in the middle of the second wave. This could be a third wave. And this is what Hygeia is all about. And it's about taking care of ourselves. It's about proactive self-care. It's not waiting till we get sick and then going to the hospital or the doctor to get well. We have to, forestall it, before it gets to that point. But like most of the other issues that we are dealing with as we move through this period is we're dealing with choices that were made in the past. A lot of it's about choices. Mars is really about choices. It's the choices that we make based on whatever our values and priorities are. Mars is the lower octave of Pluto, it's been said. Pluto, correlates to our most unconscious, our deepest unconscious desires. For one person, that desire is, to have a brand new BMW. And for another, it's to find a teacher who will teach them astrology. And we make choices based on those deep soul level desires. Pluto says jump, Mars says how high. And the Libra angle here is it's about how to balance this self-interest between community, others, and ourselves. Seventh house, first house. Though we're not really looking at houses here, we're looking at the archetype in the natural zodiac of the first house, and the natural zodiac of the seventh house being both Aries and then Libra. So one is self-interest and the other is commitment to others and by default to community. And how do we balance this exercise and power of authority and well-being between what is being asked from us on a social level and what is of greatest concern to us for our home and our family and our own safety and security? So new moons are a new cycle of emotion. The moon is our emotional body. It's our sense of who we are. It's our self-image. It's how we see ourselves. And conjunct the sun, it's how we project that personality, that self-image out into the world. We're looking at a new cycle of emotional challenges, Mars and the moon. And individuals with planets in fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sag, and those with Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius are going to feel this lunation most intensely. And the houses in your chart, if you know your chart, that are ruled by Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, or Pluto, are going to be where this is going to play out for you this month. So the full moon is going to occur 2 weeks from now on September 2nd. And as I said, it's going to be 10 degrees of Pisces. This lunation is going to be more mental than it is emotional. Pisces is clearly an emotional sign, but Pisces is also, about intuition and dreams and visions and things that seem to come to us of their own volition from beyond our normal range of comprehension or awareness. There's a second grand trine that forms again with the sun at the full moon. Remember, we had sun and moon in the grand cross at the new moon. Well, now we have the sun as one of the angles in the at the full moon, And, granted, sun and moon are relatively fast moving bodies. We don't generally pay too much attention to grand crosses or grand trines that evolve the luminaries, because they generally don't last for more than a day or two. But because we're looking at a new moon and a full moon, we're looking at a much longer cycle. This is the midpoint of the cycle. And here it's in Earth signs, just as the Grand Cross is doubling down on the Earth archetype. But the planets and celestial bodies that are involved are Uranus and Pallas Athena and the Sun. And both Pallas Athena and Uranus have an interesting correlation to each other, because Pallas Athena is what is known as the octave transformer between Uranus and Mercury. On a mental level, Mercury represents our lower mind, our basic rational day-to-day cognition, what we perceive, we red lights and green lights and what somebody's saying to us, and we understand the language and we're able to speak, and basic intelligence that we take for granted. Uranus is our higher mind. And it's in essence, it comes perhaps from some of the same realms that Neptune does, because it's what comes to us from way out in the solar system. It's what comes to us seems to come to us of its own volition, seemingly at a left field. It's our inspiration. And Pallas Athena is the modulates between the two. Pallas Athena is what enables Mercury to receive Uranus's inspirations and actually work with them. Pallas Athena, daughter of Zeus, born from his crown chakra, goddess of wisdom, she was a strategist. She was able to see the big picture of something, most often willingly trying to negotiate peace. She was an activist. She would try to negotiate some kind of reconciliation between opposing parties. When she couldn't, she was the warrior. She was born fully clad in golden armor, raising her shield and her spear in the air, from the top of Zeus's head, in the middle, shouting a battle cry. So, she's a warrior, but she will fight for peace. If she can't achieve peace, then she will, jump into the fray and slash and chop with the best of them. She and Eris are really responsible, as the cheer team for both sides of the Trojan War. But what this implies is that there's tremendous potential here for actualizing new realizations and awakenings, that we can realize some remedies here. We have the mental capability and facility to see things in a different way than we have been seeing them. This is also about how to balance the ideal and the actual. Mercury is, very rational and grounded, especially in Virgo. Pallas Athena, up here conjunct Jupiter, is really kind of very wide open in terms of her thinking. So she's able to show us something that's more of an ideal. And Uranus is also the ideal. Uranus is the idealist. But we're dealing with loss. We've got a Ceres and Neptune are coming together. The moon stands pretty much right in the middle of both of these planets, kind of weaving her energy between them. Most of us, or many of us, know the Ceres mythology of Demeter and Persephone, and how Pluto came up from the underworld and abducted Persephone, took her down, raped her, took her down into his underworld, and made her his queen. But a little known mythology is the fact that Ceres, the mother, Demeter, was also raped by Neptune. So there's history between these two planetary beings, and they're about to come together. From an evolutionary astrology perspective, Ceres correlates to where we have experienced our greatest personal loss. It's about loss. Demeter lost her daughter Persephone. They were the iconic mother and daughter. It was unfathomable. She was unable to continue even in her role as goddess on Olympus with the experience of that loss. She looked for surrogates, to replace her daughter. These are some of the things that we're looking for. We're looking for surrogates to replace our normalcy. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because we need to find some way to deal with this loss and to be able to compensate within us what it is that we need to hold on to go forward. In this chart, Venus is also opposite Saturn, and it's a partile, what's known as a partile opposition. They're both at 25 degrees. Partile means that within 1 degree of each other. And so Saturn is about structure. Venus is about priorities and values. So it's about restructuring our priorities and values, finding new values and a new way to structure our priorities so that we can deal with this loss, deal with these crises and catastrophes and cataclysms that we're dealing with. And we've also there's also a need here to balance the past with the future. I don't know if you can see it here, but Neptune is squaring the lunar nodes. And when any planet squares the lunar nodes, according to Jeff Green, it's called a skip step. It means that something, we don't get to skip over anything in our evolutionary progress, in our growth, in our personal growth, from lifetime to lifetime, even in a single lifetime. We don't get to skip steps. And so when a planet is squaring the nodes, it's an indication that that archetype needs to be resolved. It's come up on the table to be resolved one way or the other. And the way that we know how to work with it is we look to see which point, which node that planet passed over last. And the way to figure it out is if you imagine that you're standing here on Neptune, if you look to your left, that's the past. If you look to your right, that's the future. So it's the south node that remains unresolved for Neptune. And what is Neptune? It's our compassion, it's our forgiveness, it's our recognition that we're all one, that there's only one of us on this planet, okay? These they're pretty simple things. 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds understand this, but by the time you get to 30, 40, or 80, somehow it gets lost in the shuffle. And Neptune is also opposite Mercury. So, it's embedded in our awareness. This is not something that we're going to be able to just like ignore or forget or, assume that somebody else is going to fix it. We have to deal with issues from the past in our own lives, in our own country, on our own continent, in our own time. This is it. It's just come up and it's totally unavoidable. Self-care, a priority. We live in a fixed world. We can go through life eating whatever we want, drinking as much as we want, smoking, just living wild and crazy. But at some point it catches up with us. So what do? We go to the doctor. He gives us a cholesterol pill, or puts us on some kind of a regimen, or we end up in go to a fat farm or whatever. But the point is that we are the greatest healers of ourselves. Our bodies can heal anything if we give it what it needs, and mostly what it needs is the knowledge and the understanding that we can heal anything. Yes, we use external placebos, we use medications, pharmaceuticals, we do all kinds of things, but all that we're doing is just triggering our own self-healing. And we need to recognize that we have this capability all the time. And that's the way we need to get through this pandemic. Everybody who's been tested here in Santa Fe, if they are told that they are test positive, they're just told to go home and quarantine, because the immune system, if your immune system is strong enough, can overcome this just like it overcomes a cold or even a bad case of the flu. The people who are in jeopardy and who are the numbers that we're seeing in terms of the mortality rates are those who have compromised immune systems. So the most important thing that we can do is to fortify our immune system. And the other thing is all this tremendous earth energy, we need to get grounded. We need to, get back to what's really important, what's basic, what's essential. Get out in nature. Get back to a natural way of living. Start eating, natural food. Start eating better. Our bodies are built on the air, the water, and the food that we consume. And if our air is fouled, if our water is polluted, and if our food is full of toxic, GMOs and chemicals, we're only making ourselves sick. This is all one big package here that we need to pay attention to. Nobody's coming to save us. Okay, that's what we need to recognize here. No vaccine is going to save us. We need to save ourselves. So again, individuals with planets in Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn are going to feel this most intensely. And if you know your chart, whatever house Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto are the rulers of, is again where this is going to play out. The houses in our chart is the area of life where these things show up. The archetypes are the way that they show up, the details of the event itself. Excuse me. So this is one of the planetary ingresses of the month. Mercury enters Libra on August 19th. And this chart are simply the aspects from Mercury to the other planets, the other aspects that it makes other things in the chart. We're looking at racial, gender, and economic equality embedded as a primary evolutionary intention going forward. This is the relationship between Mercury and the lunar north node, the sextile. The media continues to be saturated with chaotic news. I mean, every day we listen to the news, and it's something else again. It's hard to believe that everything is cascading, down at us at the rate and intensity that it is. But it is. I mean, it is what it is, and we not only do we have to accept it as the new norm, but we have to roll with the punches. We're going to be dealing again with constant reminders of what has been lost. This is the series opposition to Mercury, and rationality degenerates into acts of violence and distrust. Mars, Eris, and Lilith. A lot of this is the way that people are expressing who they are. When we get to Uranus, we talk about how we actually self-actualize into our own individual shape, but it's different for everybody, and personal growth for one person is totally different than personal growth for another. With Mars and Eris and Lilith, those are probably some of the most challenging and forceful and belligerent archetypes that we have to deal with, and they're in everybody's chart. Everybody's got them. So Venus will ingress Leo, and this is the Venus's aspects. Venus is our priorities and our values. It's what's important to us. Venus rules two houses, two signs. She's in her yin, inner expression. She's the ruler of Taurus, which is really about what are essential resources, what's really essential for our own survival. It plays out certainly as beauty, as art, as food, as sex, as anything that's required for survival of the species. And in its outer yang expression, it's the ruler of Libra. The yin expression is our relationship with ourself, because Venus is relationship. She's relationship in both houses, but in Taurus, it's our relationship with who we are, self-worth. That's what we project out into the seventh house, is our relationship with everybody else. If we don't, love ourselves unconditionally, and I'm still waiting to meet somebody who does love themselves totally unconditionally, we're attracted to someone who somehow often is the match for the piece that we think we're missing. And it never quite works out that way. Things are good in the beginning, but over time, the relationship degrades. And at some point you realize you need an exit strategy, because you've attracted someone who's really just what's the word I'm looking for here? Taking advantage of your vulnerability. When we do love ourselves unconditionally, what we seek in a partner is someone else who also accepts themselves for who they are. And it's the space. It's not where we find someone who's going to fix us again, or someone who's going to complete us. The ideal relationship is where we find a partner, and where the two can be in the same space and grow at different times and at different speeds, different rates, but grow together and in some cases leapfrog one over the other repeatedly, in terms of their growth, but yet support each other in their personal growth for whatever it is that they feel that they need to do for that growth, short of murdering somebody. So these are the energies that are swirling around here. But our values and priorities are, at the moment, are going to be focused on preventive medicine and self-care, which I've addressed. There are conflicts between our feelings of what is right and wrong and the choices we have made, and the choices we're now being asked to make. This is Venus square Mars, and this is probably going to be the most intense aspect that's going to come up, besides the Mars-Eris conjunction, through this Mars retrograde cycle. As Venus and Mars square each other, there could be conflicts, crises in relationships, but also crises in terms of choices that we have made that we recognize we should not have made, and being faced with the same choice again, and realizing that we need to make a different choice, that our values are changing, our priorities are changing. As our priorities change, the choices that we make will have to change as well. Crises swirl around the wounds and lessons regarding self-interest, which is an Aries archetype, self-care, and emotional well-being, which is Hygiene and Cancer. Cancer being, our emotional body. So again, we're having to choose, between, what's good for me, or what's good for everybody, or what's good for me, or what have I been doing and I'm comfortable with. Our comfort level is changing, because we're finding that what we have been comfortable with, we really have to relinquish. There's a struggle to regain the balance of our commitments to self and others. What are we committed to, and who are we committed to? What ideas are we committed to? What are the things that actually are beneath those choices that we're making, and what's holding those relationships together? Is it codependency, or are we actually fulfilling each other's dharma in some way? There's a wide divergence of the way that things are going to unfold. And there's a need to find creative remedies for our sense of loss and for the burden of past history. This is Saturn, Ceres, and the lunar south node. So Mars turns retrograde on September 9th. If you're not familiar with what a retrograde cycle is, astrology is a geocentric perspective. Yes, the sun is the center of the solar system, but we're not standing on the sun. We would be crisp if we did. We're standing on the earth, looking out towards the sun. So we are seeing things from our perspective here on Earth. And at different times through the year, planets, as they move around the sun, seem to go behind it. And from our perspective, they seem to be moving backwards or slow down. It's the same concept as when you're driving down the highway at 75 miles an hour, and somebody passes you at 80 miles an hour, and from their perspective, you seem to be moving backwards. Or, conversely, you're going 80 and you pass somebody at 75 and they're moving backwards. That's what's happened. That's what happens. Those are the optics of a retrograde cycle. It's not really moving backwards, but it seems to be. And it's a symbolic representation. And Western astrology often likes to categorize retrogrades as somehow weakening or a lessening of that archetype. From my experience, it's not that at all. What it is, it's more retrospective, literally. It's a retrograde cycle generates a movement inward and downward and backward. We review whatever it is that archetype is about. And with Mars, as I said, Mars is our choices. We're going to be reviewing our past choices. We are right now living out the consequences of choices that we have made individually and collectively for days, weeks, years, millennium, centuries and millennia. And it's all coming home. The bill has come due. Eris is joined up with Mars, and there is no longer any negotiation. Okay, there's no negotiation here. Eris does not negotiate. We can expect flare-ups of violence and anger to punctuate this retrograde cycle. And these are the aspects to Uranus, Eris, and Lilith again. Uranus being very disruptive and interruptive. Yes, Uranus creates our individuality. It's how as the polarity to Leo being our personality and how we're self-actualizing. Uranus is who we want to become. It's if you would, it's the direction that Leo was pointing in order to fulfill its own self-actualization process. But it also creates interruptions and disruptions along the way in order to shatter the Saturnian, Capricornian structures and crystallizations of emotions and ideas and beliefs, so that we can change. Your Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, it's the archetype that in the natural zodiac follows Capricorn, as the 11th house follows the 10th house. It's where that Saturnian, Capricornian crystal is shattered into many pieces. Good example is many years ago, I had a very good friend who had a stroke. And he described it to me. He said, I felt like I was a mirror that was, all the pieces were broken and they were all laying on the floor around me, but I only picked up the pieces that I wanted to hold on to. This is the process that we're going through. We're in pieces. There's going to be more pieces, but we're just going to pick up what's essential, and we're going to let the rest of them go. Our priorities will be challenged, even under attack, as Venus squares Mars. Reemergence of issues from the past generate reactivity to repression, suppression, and control by powerful, often overwhelming forces. And we see it in the news every day, the clash between the police in Portland, people who don't want to wear a mask. This is going to increase. Even the number of Republicans, there are going to be a number of Republicans who are going to speak at the Democratic convention tonight, to encourage everyone to vote for Biden. But the GOP itself is circling their wagons still around Donald Trump. And its opportunities to chart a new course and new choices going forward. This is the lunar north node. The lunar north node is our probable trajectory forward, but we have to choose it. It will facilitate our evolution, our growth, by giving us opportunities that will open for us, but we have to take those opportunities. We have to walk through it. It's like the moving sidewalk at the airport. Even though everybody has rolling suitcases now, you still have to drag them through the airport. But you get to that walkway and you step on it, and it takes you and your luggage and everything right to your gate. Well, that's what the lunar north node is, in a way. We have to be proactive with it. We have to take that first step to get on that track, to go in that direction when the opportunities show up. So I'm going to kind of run through some of these important dates, because each of these aspects that's going to occur are trigger points for the Grand Cross. And so we can expect the activities that I've described, depending on the archetype. This first one is going to be Mars, to be apparent, the day of, the day before, the day after, in the world and in your own charts, again, assuming that the points that are denoted here are making some aspect to your chart, or determine the intensity of the event itself personally, but we're all going to feel them in the world generally either way. So we see that Mars is going to square Saturn on August 24th, and then square Hygeia on the 5th from its Aries point. And then it turns retrograde on September 9th at 28 degrees of Aries, almost at the very end of Aries. And it'll be in retrograde through January. And then it will oppose Juno in September. And the Venus Cancer square will occur on September 4th. So Hygeia is going to enter the sign of Leo on September 12th. So we can see an intensified focus on self-care and preventive medicine. It's about taking personal responsibility for our well-being. Hygeia opposes Saturn. Saturn is the planet of responsibility. It's empowering ourselves as self-healers. That's Pluto. Pluto is all about self-empowerment. It's about taking back our power, giving away our power, having someone take our power, Pluto. Making conscious, proactive choices regarding diet and lifestyle, squaring Mars, sextiling Sedna. Whatever Sedna touches in the chart brings consciousness to that archetype. So we're being made more conscious. So, either we're going to get slapped upside the head, or we can, wake up and have some realizations. But either way, we're going to get it. Commitment to finding emotional balance is the fulcrum of well-being, is Juno and Libra. I like the fulcrum image there for Libra. We're really trying to balance, because we need to be emotionally balanced. Disease begins in the spiritual body. It could be karmic, it could be genetic, it could be from our ancestors, it's our DNA, but it doesn't necessarily have to manifest because somebody in our family had this disease or that disease. When it shows up in our emotional body, that's when it begins to manifest, because we get worried about it. We begin to make ourselves sick, and then it's in our mental body, and then it shows up in our physical body. That's the progression of disease metaphysically. So we need to be balanced emotionally. We need to find that space where we can have our foot in two worlds, if you would, and be able to juggle what's going on, and roll with the punches. Embodying healthy values into our lifestyle. And that's a given. We shouldn't have to go through this to know that. And that's the misspelled conjunct Venus-Leo factor here. Jupiter. Jupiter is one of the points in the Grand Cross, but it's also moving, and it's also retrograde. So it's going to be opposed by Venus. It's going to be trined by Mercury and trined by the Sun. It's going to station direct in mid-September on the 12th, and then Mercury is going to square Jupiter on September 17th. When Jupiter stations direct, I think we will feel the shift. Jupiter is the expansion principle. Saturn is the contraction principle. They have a lot to do with the economy, They are huge social factors. I think that we will see a shift towards things opening up in one way or another, but it doesn't mean that it's the end, and it doesn't mean that we're going to be through it. Jupiter, the Hellenists called Jupiter the greater benefic, the King Midas touch, if you would. But what's really needs to be understood about Jupiter is that it makes everything bigger. Okay, it doesn't necessarily make everything better. Whatever it touches, it's going to enlarge. So we can see what's going on, with Jupiter at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's not making it any better. And then Mercury will square Jupiter on the 17th of September. Saturn will be squared by Mars, be opposed by Venus, be trined by Mercury as well, and also be trined by the Sun. So, again, this is a mixed bag. We've got, squares are crises. Oppositions are clearly, points of greatest tension. Trines are opportunities. To get back to the idea of the Grand Cross and the Grand Square, everybody, wants to have a Grand Trine in their chart and not have a Grand Square. But, it's the squares and oppositions and conjunctions that really get things done. If we're having an opposition or a square or a conjunction, we're going to know about it. If we're not into astrology, we may not know what is going on, but we will know something is going on. Trines are a lot different. Trines can pass unnoticed. It's like that lunar north node proactivity. We need to get proactive with it. We need to engage with a trine to make it work. Yes, some of it may rub off on us by its own nature, depending on the intensity of the aspect and how close it is to some major dominant planet in our chart. But the more we work with it, the more it will facilitate and present opportunities and openings for us to find remedies and to work through this, to work through the problems that we're experiencing. And Saturn itself will oppose Hygeia and also square Juno. So again, these are all trigger points for when we can expect some of these events to show up. Uranus is in Taurus and ruled by Venus. So it's really been responsible for this whole thing of, the word essential. That's why this has come up, because we are being thrown into the pit of what's essential, of really determining, what it is that we need versus what we don't need. It's a Plutonian process as well in terms of purging what it is that is time to get rid of. But it's Uranus that is showing it to us and is demonstrating what it is that we need to move forward to become who it is we want to become. That's Uranus's role, and to inspire us and to open our higher mind so that we can receive input of new information, new ideas, new realizations that will begin to create a pathway towards the remedies and the solutions that we're all hoping are going to show up on the horizon. And again, these are the dates when it's going to trigger the points in the cross. And Neptune. Neptune is our connection to all that is. From an evolutionary astrology perspective, Neptune dissolves anything and everything that stands between us and the source of all that is. And dependent on, how much we care about that, it's certainly going to determine about how much it works. Neptune could be the visionary, the poet, or it could be the alcoholic or the drug addict. The chart never tells us that. But it has both capabilities because it takes us outside of ourselves. It's an ego dissolver. It dissolves our sense of self, and it can create lunacy. When we lose our identity, or that's what we feel like we're going crazy. So it's both sides of this polarity are functioning here. There's some delusions, in the field, and there are some visions in the field. And the hardest part for all of us is sorting out the difference between the truth and the lies. What's reality and what is not reality? And we can't assume necessarily assume that what we think is fictional is also not reality, because it may very easily be true. But that's another whole discussion. And Pluto, who is not a dwarf planet by any stretch of the imagination. This is our soul connection to who we are. This is the deepest part of us. And as Pluto transits anything, it's going to make huge changes. It's going to either empower it, disempower it, transform it. Transform it is a big word. It's about transformation. And with Pluto as active as it is through this year, we can clearly understand the challenges that we're facing, and literally the way that the Earth is moving beneath our feet. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. 2012, it met up with Uranus. Uranus squared Pluto in, Uranus squared Eris in 2016, and you know the story. So Pluto is quite active, and it's quite intense, but it's working in our favor. It is our soul, working on its own, on its own timetable and its own schedule. So we have to allow it, and again, we just have to surrender. It's a Neptune word, but it really applies to Pluto as well. Pluto takes no prisoners. We can only surrender. And these are the dates when Pluto will be triggering the cross. And Pallas. Pallas Athena is quite important this year because she's part of this cross. She's one of the goddesses that I've referenced. The goddesses that really are here to help us are Pallas and Juno. And so, we need to listen to what it is that comes to us from that higher place. The ideas that we get that seem to be unrealistic or seem to be wild and crazy. Don't assume that they are. Pay attention to them. Work with them. But mostly, she enables us to see the big picture. She was the strategist. And when we see the big picture of something, then we understand how all the little pieces fit together to work with it. So it gives us an understanding. She gives us an overview that we can see where we're going, so that we understand the pitfalls and the barriers that we may encounter along the way. So so pay attention, and if you get this flash, write it down. You have a dream. Write it down, think about it, because there's going to be a lot of information there. And Juno, I've spoken about Juno. She's our commitments, our relation, what it is that we have a commitment, the relationships, the ideas, anything we have a relationship with, and that we're committed to. And these relationships and these commitments are all going to be in play through this month, as she makes, as all of these aspects from Pluto, Venus, Saturn, and Mars passed over her. And she also opposes Eris and Aries in September 2nd, which could be very intense for relationships. So, stay calm, stay calm. Hygeia. Again, this is COVID. If we wanted to personify or choose one of the goddesses who really is about the pandemic, it is Hygeia. And again, these are dates where we can expect pandemic events to surface, where we will see changes in terms of how we're approaching this, how it's being dealt with, both as individually and collectively, and how this is going to play out. and Eris. What I want to talk about here, most importantly, is right here. I wrote about this, I spoke about this in December here locally in Santa Fe. It's in my 2020 forecast book on Amazon. But this is quite a significant, probably the most single significant aspect or occurrence this year from a planetary perspective, because Pluto in Capricorn has not squared Eris and Aries for 2,700 years. The last time this occurred was what's known as the Axial Age. It was the time when Buddha and Zoroaster and Pythagoras and Hesiod and some of the greatest thought streams of Western culture came onto the planet. Saints walked on the planet in the 7th century BC. There has not been this particular aspect in that many years. It occurs 5 times. In those years, it actually occurred 7 times. But it's because Pluto and Eris have Eris has such a widely elliptical orbit. And both of these have very long orbits. Pluto's orbit is 248 years. Eris's orbit is over 500 years. She spends 1/5 of that time, 1/5 out of 12 different archetypes in the sign of Aries. She had the first square as this year began. This year began with a bang. And this is it. I mean, this is what's happening. This is at the core of this entire year. We have 4 more squares coming up before this is done. There'll be 2 more this year, and then 2 next year in 2021. And it's all around these 23, 24, 25 degrees of Aries and Capricorn. It's quite intense. We are blessed to live in interesting times is the only way that I can categorize this. To me, this is the meaning of these Sabian symbols that we saw about illuminations and illuminance. We're being illuminated, but our eyes have been shut for so many millennium that our eyelids are having to be pried open to see the truth. So these are my attempts to give everybody a horoscope for the month. This is based on the new moon and where it falls out. You can read these for your moon sign and your rising sign as well. It's not just sun sign astrology by any means. The reason that the moon and rising sign will work is because we act and react from any of these 3 places in our chart. We don't always act from our ascendant. Sometimes we act or react from our moon or our rising sign. So read each of those signs for yourself in terms of see if there's any message there for you that's relevant. So Aries, the ongoing chaos and discord in your life might feel oppressive right now. Your independence is threatened and you might feel oppressed, even depressed. Use your past experiences with difficulties and challenges as your roadmap to navigate these current times. See the big picture. Experiment with different solutions. Find practical ways to maintain your sense of who you are and where you're going. Nurture your commitments and allow yourself to depend on those around you who support your work. Taurus, your sense of self-reliance is peaking. Ground yourself in what is truly essential to you right now. Envision what you would like to see on your road ahead and let go of what is lurking from the past. Meet your world with your individuality. Don't succumb to any fears or insecurities that might creep into your daily thoughts. Instead, allow your intuition to guide you to find reassurance in what is available to you right now. Gemini. I gotta move this so I can read it. Your voice in the world is your greatest gift. Are you expressing how you feel, how you perceive the world around you, and how you are connected to everyone and everything? Use whatever personal form of expression works best for you to release the anxiety and uncertainty you are experiencing. Step into the new future that is unfolding within you and around you. Find your authentic voice and be that person. Cancer. The goddess is calling you to come home to your innermost sanctuary. Follow her lead to where your heart lies. Let go of what is dragging you down from the past. Instead, begin to envision a new future for yourself and those around you who are your family. Nurture yourself, strengthen your emotional well-being, and you will find the authentic joy that you are searching for in that place of deepest safety. Leo, your birthday may have come and gone, but it is still your opportunity to celebrate yourself. Meet the world right now with your well-developed reliability. Recover your personal choices from the past that can direct you to the new future that is unfolding. Bring to the surface and address any health issues that are weighing you down. Take responsibility for your well-being. Don't leave it to chance. Make sure you are doing everything you can to boost your immune system. Virgo, you've carried enough water and chopped enough wood. Time to go back onto the mountain to refresh your personal perspective. Empower yourself by enlarging your vision to encompass a wider perspective. Explore new ways of seeing the world around you. Be more forgiving and compassionate and less critical of yourself and others. Recognize that everyone else is just like you in some way. Libra. Your level of commitment to your ideals and your personal values is at a solar maximum. Seek out those who share your views and goals and join them for discussion and community. Be aware of the teachers and healers that are around you. Recognize and honor your own personal stature. Break and reform your personal mold where necessary. Release any fears about the pandemic. Make yourself as strong as you can, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Scorpio. Bring the power and intensity of your own personal expression and personality to bear on finding remedies for the current issues in your life that are creating chaos and disunity. If you are not feeling up to par physically, focus on what your body is telling you. Your immune system depends on the basic elements of life: clean water, clean food, and clean air. Focus on your commitments to yourself to stay safe and be healthy. Sagittarius. In a sense, we are all learning the same lesson right now. Our health and well-being are the product of our priorities and the choices we make regarding those, according to those priorities. We all need to remain committed to proactive self-care for ourselves and to the world around us to the degree that we can help others. Do some self-study this month to learn as much as you can about yourself right now through self-observation. You already know the remedies for what ails you. Capricorn. The challenges that you are facing are your responsibility to find working solutions for the crises that you are facing you. Are you keeping your commitments to yourself? What are the choices you are making regarding the issues swirling around you? We all need to wake up to the unpleasant truths about ourselves that we have repressed or suppressed for so long. Don't feel overwhelmed. You have the inner strength right now to bring light to the shadows of your life. Aquarius. No one ever said that relationships were easy. They require work because what we are encountering in others is ourself. What we run up against in someone else is a projection of ourselves. This is why relationships are ground zero for personal growth. When we recognize that the faults and annoyances we observe in others are simply our own reflection, we can begin to not only heal any relationship issues, but we also begin the process of healing ourselves. Pisces, time for you to come down off the mountain and rejoin your tribe. There's work to be done down on the ground that only you can do. Make the choice to commit your time and effort to the practical side of life. This does not mean to let go of the sacred space you have created for yourself, but bring that space with you into the world and let others join you in the practice. I want to thank Bradley and Aragon for creating these beautiful glyphs. So in 2 weeks, I'm doing a talk that I'm quite excited about. I did this talk in Santa Fe about 7 or 8 years ago. Things have changed. I'm kind of coming back to it because it is on the table more than ever. The United States, are we still united, is facing its greatest test, the rule of law in its history. So please join me for this talk as I unravel the astrology of the United States and the current planetary influences upon it. And here's a hint, I will not be using the Sibley or Gemini chart. I do these monthly transits here every month. They also are posted on my website for evolutionaryastrology.com. I'm posting daily transits as I see them as needing to be shared on Facebook, on my Facebook Evolutionary Astrology page. And if you would like to know more about how you are personally impacted by these planetary events, I do personal consultations, needless to say. Here is the link to reach me. I would love to hear from you. So I'll open the floor to any questions or comments.
Thanks, Daniel. Yes, we have a few questions. Wendy, please go ahead.
Thanks, Linda. Hey, Daniel, this was really great. I only got part of it. I just came in late, getting home from work. So it's so funny because one of my questions when you mentioned your book was, does that have the chart from that book you found last year in it for the USA? So I guess that's the presentation you're doing in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm using the chart, which is the Declaration of War chart, which came to me actually by way of Ariel Gutman through
that's right,
through the astrocartography, Jim Lewis, who she had collaborated with. And you know, I'm not going to spend any time really defending the chart. When you see the transits to the U.S. chart, I won't have to defend it.
Yeah, but I mean that presentation you did last year or whenever it was, that was fascinating.
Yeah, well, Jim Lewis was convinced. You know, he's the astrocartography guy, and he truly believed that the chart that I've come to is the most accurate chart of the United States. So it's going to be interesting. The transits are wild. They're going to blow your mind. So
they already are. Believe me, I'm having a very personal experience with some personal planets right in the middle of it. One thing I wanted to just mention was you mentioned Pluto squaring Eris for the first time in 27,000 years, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was thinking that means that, of course, there's been the opposition during that time. There was the original conjunction, a first square, the opposition, and then this would put us in a third quarter square.
Correct.
Linda mentioned that we're in the disseminating square in the chat. So I guess in my head, I'm thinking, how could that be?
No, it is third quarter because Capricorn is closing in. Pluto is the slower of the two.
Oh, it is? No, isn't Eris is slower?
No, excuse me. Yeah, I mean Pluto is the faster of the two. Eris is the slower. Yeah. But so yes, the cycle is closing. It is the last quarter square. Yes.
Yeah, because it's exact, right? So
yes, and the last quarter square is the one that's got all the tension in it. This is the compulsion to get this done.
Perfect, Linda. Thank you.
Right.
So I'm going to make my screen bigger. It's hard to read. I have a little screen. I don't have my glasses on. Hold on.
Daniel, I think
yes.
Eris, it's at the last degree of the disseminating phase. And so this year it'll stay in the disseminating phase, but next year it'll move into the last quarter phase.
Oh, because like the exact minutes, Linda?
Yeah, no, just the last degree, the 1 degree. So it's actually right at the end of disseminating right now and for the rest of the year. And then next year it'll be in the last quarter phase all year.
Yes. That's very good. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
it's a long transit. It's a very long transit, obviously, because of the speed of the two planets.
Yeah.
And it will coincide with the U.S. Pluto return.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to your talk. I hope that I can make it to that. And
So
I love what you.
It's all going to be recorded.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you wrote about Leo too, because I did just have a birthday, and man, with those inconjuncts from Capricorn, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy it's moving on. This will be the last batch.
I just had a birthday too.
Well, it's been hitting my sun, and it's gonna hit my Mercury big time later. But anyway, that's been a long transit, like, all this time. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy.
Okay, any further questions? Please unmute. Yes, go ahead.
I had a question about the 27,000 years for Eris. The first time you spoke, Daniel, you said 2,700 years, but then the text came up, the chat came up 27,000, and you just again said 27,000. I just want to be clear.
I said 27,000? No, 2,700. No.
You said 2,700 the first time you said it, but since then it's been 27,000.
I said it wrong. I guess I was thinking it was the galactic cycle, but the whole.
That's why
2,700. No, there were no people on the
you.
planet that we know of 27,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry. If I got tongue-tied, I apologize.
Okay, Jennifer, yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, I guess I didn't hear your whole talk, but I just caught the last bit of it. And the question I have is kind of of a personal nature, of my personal astrology, just that I have had many exact things happening in my own personal astrology, as the most recent full moon was an exact opposition to my ascendant. This new moon is an exact opposition to my moon and my Chiron. And I've had many exact things like this in the last 2 or 3 years. And I just wondered if you would be able to give me any insights as to how to work with all of these powerful things. I'm also in my second Chiron return, or Saturn return in Capricorn, so that was exact. I've had many exact things happening.
Without seeing your chart and having some time, at least 10 or 15 minutes to look at it, I can't really give you an answer that I would be happy with. The best that I can tell you is, first of all, the odds are that we're all going to have exact aspects over time. It's kind of like roulette. Sometimes the ball is going to land on 5 black. So it's mathematical statistics. But your chart is a whole thing. You can't pull one thing out. And I don't even know your chart. But I mean, I'd be happy to sit down with you, contact me and we could spend some time doing it. I don't know that this would best serve you from this venue to discuss that.
Right, I understand. Just a couple of things that I caught at the end of your talk really registered. So thanks. Yep.
Yeah, watch the video when it's posted, because I have covered the archetypal expression of every one of these major, aspects. So, see which of those resonate with you, because I did cover all of them. I'm sorry you came late, but you will have the opportunity to certainly watch this, over and over again if you want to, and sort through it.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for your questions. And that brings us to the end of your meeting, Daniel. Any final questions? Just checking. No, okay.
Just want to say thank you very much, Daniel. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you all for being here and for listening and for, giving me, the ability to sit here and spat off what I see going on.
Where do we see the recording?
I'm sorry?
Where do we see the recording?
It will be in multiple places. It will be in the EA Zoom YouTube page that Linda will post. I will have it on my website. It will be on my my blogs. If you receive my emails, it will be in that. It'll be in multiple places. It won't be hard to find.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Daniel Fiverson. Would you all please thank Daniel?
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Lots to study from.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Looking forward to the next one, Daniel. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.